Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I noticed with all the emails. Scott asked me to do that, so I did that as a
No,
favor
that was
for
good.
Scott.
Cheryl, this is our regular scheduled meeting, right, for the month of, or is this the special meeting? It can be
He wants to
either.
know if he has to
Either,
meet again.
either
All right.
one is good, like,
Okay,
it's a
all right.
public hearing, so.
All right, okay.
Because we have that meeting.
So are we accepting minutes and all that from, why don't we do that?
Yeah, if you want,
Okay,
unless-
Yeah, we'll do, okay.
Might as well. It
All
doesn't
right,
take
Scott, we
long.
good to go, buddy? Usually he closes the door when he's good to go.
Okay,
Yeah, yes,
at the meeting.
okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Good evening to everyone here at the Public Safety Complex, and those of you home watching via Zoom. I believe that's what we're on, correct, Heather? It is Zoom? Okay. This is a meeting of the Planning Board with the sole purpose of conducting a public hearing regarding the ongoing project for the last almost 17 months in...
Recording in progress.
That was me. All good.
Okay, no, that's fine. As I said, an ongoing project for the last 16 and a half or 17 months in an undertaking to review, amend, and update the Paxton zoning bylaws and the subdivision control laws. It's been a project that has had several participants, a hearing to take comments and discuss. I'm not sure of exactly the sections, but let's just say sections 1 through 6 or 7. Then we have an additional section for accessory dwelling units. We have a section for the business zoning. And at this point, we are really not going to be discussing, I know some of you may be here and listening at home, we are not going to get fully involved with a deep discussion about the MBTA zoning requirement. I just would leave it right now at this point that we're continuing to work on it, and we may have some input if Roberta is ready to kind of update us as to why or how, what's taken place. So with that, if you would.
Sure. Thanks, Neil. So as everyone knows, we've been working on the MBTA Communities Act per the law that was passed in 2022 by the state, requiring communities with commuter rail or adjacent to commuter rail communities to zone for a particular number of units to increase density beyond what a town's typical zoning would be. And we've been working on that with the assistance of CMRPC for as many months to provide them with our draft language that we have to date, not a final set of narrative that we're prepared to vote on, but the draft language and our draft compliance model and our draft plans that we have to date so that they can assist in making sure that we are complying to the best of our ability with the law as it is written today. And we think that's a great recommendation from them. We can bring this to Springtown meeting, and what it does for the community is allow us more time to talk through it and to be able to answer your questions in real time and get accurate information back to you and continue those discussions. EOHLC has recommended that we give them about 90 days prior to our next town meeting to be able to review and respond and recommend changes that we have to our draft language. So we'd like to do that. We will continue to meet both as an internal group, but also...
I'm sorry. Roberta, would you just explain what EHO...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just because everybody
Sure.
needs, I mean, we've talked about it for months, but
Yep.
I'm sure that nobody outside of our little gathering would have an
Sure.
understanding of what they are.
EOHLC is a state agency. It's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. It's a newly created state agency. It used to be in years past combined with economic development. And since, as of recently, when the state has determined that there is a housing crisis and they really wanted to focus time, attention, and resources on that crisis, they separated the organizations. So economic development is one state agency, and Housing and Livable Communities is another state agency with its own secretariat, and that's where that MBTA Communities was born out of.
Thank you. The other thing that I just want people to understand too is, and we mentioned this during the informational session, this is a compliance requirement. It is not, at this point, and we hope never will be, a building issue. Jane, I have to apologize to you. I forgot to mention that CMRPC has been instrumental in this process, acting as our consultant. So I apologize for that
No,
oversight.
no worries.
Okay,
No
on my
worries.
part.
So I'm just gonna pull up another document as well, Neil, just a quick slideshow piece. I think will help us go through some of this too. So I just have, stop me anytime you want.
Pull that microphone in just a little bit
Oh.
so we can,
Someone can't hear me, is that even humanly possible?
and I have hearing aids in.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
That's perfect.
All right. Cheryl's like, I can hear you just fine. So outline the changes, and Neil already covered.
Make that larger so it can be seen in these seats.
Alan, I don't know if I can on that, but I'm gonna read
Have
this.
a handout for the people at,
I don't for this, because this is just my overview, but I'm gonna read this slide, and then the rest should be bigger. Okay? No worries. So outline of changes. So Neil already covered a bunch of these, but we do have some legal recommendations and CMRPC changes that were made since the last public meeting we had for the information sessions. All the definitions were relocated to Section 1 in definitions. That was one of our major changes in this project. There was the addition of, was updated for more business-friendly and permissible zoning. Accessory dwelling apartments were updated for compliance with the state ADU requirements that go into effect in February of 2025. And the addition of MBTA zoning bylaws in compliance with the state deadline December 2025, as Neil already mentioned, is going to be passed over this evening for the reasons that Roberta provided.
Okay, next slide.
There. So is that better, Alan?
I have my own.
Oh, Jane's on top of it. Excellent.
So, if you have a question, about that, do I wait till it?
No, I'll tell you what, tonight we're going to be kind of informal because I'm glad to see people here supporting this hearing. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll recognize, no, you're fine, and we'll recognize you and we'll take them as a business could be placed on that because the town or a private citizen at this point does not have any ownership rights to that parcel of property. And do we have there you go. Can you come down onto page 2? Where you have proposed, can you, because I think the part that you're.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing the right screen. I'm like, it's up. I have it, Neil,
No,
right
no,
here.
let's go down a page or two. Come down to where Asnabumskit, that's where you're talking the water district, correct?
Yes.
All right, so.
The drawing I saw on the thing that was on the internet shows the red line all the way. It doesn't, it's not like the one I saw, but I
You're
could
too far.
have.
Heather, back up one. Right, is that, yeah, that's Asnabumskit. All right, so if I'll just come up here.
That's Kettle Brook Reservoir on the left.
No, but what I'm saying, we're talking
looks like
about,
it's
see,
not
this is the
included.
property, this is Asnabumskit Road here. Can we go back to one slide previous? There we go. So you can see there is no red zoning in this. So we're right there.
So House Nursery is there?
We're right there, yep. So
It's
this is,
That's probably that,
this is Camp Street here.
Yes.
This is House Vegetable Stand here.
yes.
I believe
There's
this may.
wetland there, up there.
This right, that's not in the red district. We just use that as a discussion point in terms of reference from the center of town to the Worcester line. But there are some protected areas that can't be touched.
But I would also just add that even if it was even if the zoning had changed to business, and there are wetlands there, it doesn't remove that requirement to adhere to Conservation Commission and any wetlands protection bylaws. It's just an overlay of zoning, but then you still have to comply with frontage and setbacks and any wetlands and conservation area, any natural species, if there was anything endangered on that site. So the zoning doesn't take away any of the other protections. It just tells you what also is allowed in that area.
Thank you for that answer, that's good on the face of it, but what puzzles me, I mean, I know you don't want to talk a lot about what you just mentioned that you weren't going to talk about.
You can mention the MBTA.
An area that we feel, for whatever the criteria is, would be suitable for denser development. And then the developer still has to go, one, acquire the property from the property owner privately, a completely arm's length transaction from the town, so the owner of the property has to agree to the sale price, the buyer has to agree to the conditions, and then the developer has to go and still permit and adhere to all of those things. So the town doesn't have to solve that. To Neil's point, the town doesn't have to solve for sewer or water or frontage or traffic at all. That is completely on the developer. So zoning is not building, and two, this is something the town has to do, but the people don't. So if any of you that have property that are in this MBTA community overlay the way it currently is today, if you never want to sell your property, if you want to sell it but you don't want to sell it to a developer, you do not have to. This is something the town has to do, but the people do not. The owners of the property do not.
It seems disingenuous to offer that as a possibility when the mitigation would be so onerous, even for a single family.
And I don't disagree, and I think that this is one of the, that's too hard. It'll just make sure that it's viable from a point where I think a certain percentage has to be upland or dry or, not a wetland. So they will check those models. And CMRPC has done that for us in the 3 that we've initially thought were good alternatives.
Are you good?
Well,
No, please follow up right now. I'd rather we get this out and be able to discuss it as we move forward, as the committee continues to work, so.
I don't mean to be contentious, but
No?
I've had previous experience with zoning boards that say wetlands.
That's her.
Well, not in Paxton. I mean, just in an adjacent community
Understood.
where the wetland consideration rules were flouted unmercifully. And so I don't trust, I mean, with experience, I'm skeptical about wetlands being respected.
Okay, but along those lines, or that train of thought, when the law was passed in '22 by the state, we kind of objected slightly because we were an adjacent community to Worcester, which has the transit station. In discussing with representatives and submitting our questionnaire that had to be done again in a timely fashion, telling them we had no sewer system in town, and unless the state was going to come up with millions or tens of millions of dollars to put sewers in the town to allow for higher density housing, there were problems. So then they created, subject to, I think there were 8 or 10 communities that said anything else, so we can take the overlay district off and put it somewhere else on another piece of property. But again, it's all going to be due to compliance, not building. Okay?
Thank you very much. Can
No,
you
that's
just tell
fine.
me- Can you just tell me how many units, and then I'll...
Well, that's one of the things, we've had several questions about that, and then in turn, we've had questions to the state. So at this point, I don't think, I don't want to alarm people. You've heard things through the information session, and I'll repeat what that was, that we feel 84 units would do it. But there's also been, or 88 units, 84, all right, that's all right. 84 units would do it, but there's some different interpretations based on some questions we got from the community, which was good. We took input from the community, we discussed it, and then we've gone back to the state, and we're waiting now for additional information. And again, that's just another piece that goes in as to why we're going to kind of pass over this tonight, okay?
Thank you very much. and
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Heather, can we move back to the slides there, please?
Sure. I'm trying.
Okay. All right, so the edits by legal and CMRPC post the public presentations, as well as in the definition, there were deletions and changes.
All right, can, stop just right there? Just
Sure.
Accessory dwelling units are something that the state is
Bless you.
enacting a law in February of 2025. Presently, what we have are what do we call them, Cheryl? Temporary accessory
Use apartments.
use apartments. And what we have in place now is that a permit is required be renewed every 2 years. And if you apply for a new permit, you have to give a floor plan and what's going to be designated as the accessory apartment on that property, and it must be owner occupied. The new law, oh, you're right with me there, okay. So we have to get rid of temporary accessory apartments. We're going to go with accessory dwelling units. There will no longer be a permit application that is required to be renewed. You'd have to still apply for it so that the town knows what you're doing, and that we have the inspections in place to make sure that all of the inhabitants are safe with egress and in terms of living conditions. It allows for the apartment to be 25% of the primary residence or up to 600 feet. We're extending that. I believe we've gone to 900 feet if house, and you're going to turn it into a 3-bedroom house and an accessory unit structure on site that would have to take care of that. So there's a lot involved, or a lot of hoops to jump through to do that. But again, it's being mandated. The governor signed this into law back earlier this month. I believe it was October. Correct, or was it in September?
I think it was
August.
Oh, that's when it was signed? I thought,
It was signed in August.
okay, August of this year, to go into effect in February of '25.
Yes.
Okay. So, we just want you to be aware that, again, the state is kind of forcing our hand along this measure, so, okay? Any questions? Please raise your, I mean, if you're here, or anybody at home, if you want to ring in, Heather will stop us if you have a question regarding the process there, okay? Next section, or next slide.
So on definitions, just some updates since the last public information session. So for definitions, we deleted quite a few. These were ones that legal had advised that we did not need or were redundant. And they're pretty much in alphabetical order, but as of right sitting, automobile refueling station, building inspector, compliance guidelines, gross density, net density, DHCD, functionally dependent use, functionally equivalent services, generation of pollutants, highly adjacent. Second to go over them simply because they are something different from what we had at the last information session, and people wouldn't have had an opportunity to review them, nor would the planning board, since we just finished cleaning those up a little earlier. So as of right, they just changed, one word from a zoning ordinance or bylaw to this bylaw, so very minor changes. Battery energy storage system, there was very limited here. There was a little miscommunication with legal. They thought we were omitting a number, but it seemed it was just a space. And that was on the second section, or first section, residential scale battery, last line where it said consist of only a single energy. So if anyone saw that previously and saw a space between A and single and they were unsure of that, that has not changed. Ordinance was changed to bylaw. Ordinance is what you have in a city. Bylaws are what we have in a town. Building commissioner, so this is just cleaned up a little bit more. With the language there, essentially being, in addition to being charged with the administration and enforcement of the Mass Building Code, and the additional reference to inspector buildings and building code enforcement official was removed.
Is that something we are going to have available in the coming days?
We can most certainly print a hard copy.
All right, and it
There
will
were
be,
none at the town hall today.
no, because
A
we're,
printed copy.
no, revisions were made as late as 5:30 this evening, so we didn't have what I would say a copy. What you're seeing here is as of 5:30, 6 o'clock today.
So,
But-
but we can't see it, and we're here to give comments on.
We're working on enlarging.
The town does a very bad job at accommodating those with disabilities.
I'm not sure I follow that comment in terms of disability, just the
Well, he
printed.
clearly is having trouble seeing, and he asked for a reasonable accommodation earlier for Heather to make something larger, and she did for that, but then she didn't do for that. So he is not getting his reasonable accommodation under ADA.
All right, now, Robin,
Don't get me started.
all right.
Neil-
I'm waiting.
Just make it bigger, please.
So Neil, I'm currently in the process of trying to convert a 124-page doc, the YouTube links,
Wonderful. Wonderful, thank you.
Yep. Information sheets, red line versions, everything.
Heather, will the PowerPoint be there also?
After this evening, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can most certainly add that. And we'll add this document as well, too, once we're finished. I am trying, Neil, it's just
That's fine.
cooperation
That's
with
fine.
technology is not happening.
All right, that's fine.
Do you want to stop? Yes.
And then the materials.
All right, so as we're going through this hopeful expansion of fonts, any questions regarding what we've discussed so far, particularly the business zoning? I was glad you brought up the ones that were protected under the water district. That helped. Anybody else have concerns? Am I going to have to pry questions out of you people?
Yeah, I have a question
Certainly.
about the accessory dwelling unit
Yes.
element. That has nothing to do with what you were talking about, probably, but the large-sized RVs, we used to call them trailers, but now they're fancy RVs, that some people have on their property currently. They take the wheels off and they're the equivalent of in-law apartments or whatever on those sites. They must be zoned currently for something. Will they continue to be zoned for what they are, or will those be considered accessory dwelling units and will they have to? I don't have one, by the way, at all.
You should get one.
Yeah, thank you.
Process that allows for that. And in particular, to your point, it is so that the town can ensure that it's not being used for a permanent residential facility, like an accessory dwelling unit. But maybe, Jane, you could talk a little bit more about the permanence of accessory dwelling units and the intention of that?
Yes, they'd still have to meet building code, so being on wheels, that would not qualify. And we're waiting for some additional guidance from EOHLC to answer a lot of questions like that. EOHLC just took on a new hire that is an ADU specialist, and we do expect to hear from her soon and have a meeting to get additional information on that. Welcome.
Oh, there we go. Much better.
Is it working?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I think Cheryl's
How about those
approving, so-
Dodgers? Or those Patriots?
Are they on tonight?
If so,
All
you're
right.
missing him. All right. Alan, is that better?
Well, I can see that.
You can see
Thank
that
you.
better? Okay, no worries. All right, so let's get back
As
to,
long as you don't make it smaller later on.
well, if I do, just let me know. Let's see here.
As she's going through this, the other thing I want you to keep in mind is this goes before town council, and that's where some of these comments have come. And if after special town meeting, it is voted or approved, it then goes to the Attorney General's office in Boston, and they will probably take somewhere between 100 to 120 days to review everything. And 99 out of 100 times, they come back with some suggestions. It's never perfect, no matter who reviews it. Somebody has to justify the existence of a position that they hold at the State House, so they're going to review it and come up with a comment that would then be enacted at the next special or the annual town meeting.
I'm just looking for the color blue. That's all my eyes are doing right now. Sorry.
So is there anything about in the zoning regulations, in the proposed ones, and in the, what is it, the rural community next to a city, whatever? Is there anything in these zoning regulations about public transportation or a requirement that there be public transportation in a zone that will accommodate a significant number of additional units? How do people get there
Well,
in the zoning?
from the zoning standpoint there, did I answer correctly, or did I understand what you were looking for?
I'm well, I'm looking for something that will deal with a large number of additional people moving to a community that isn't designed to accommodate a large number of additional people, particularly if they're new to the area and don't have a way of getting around that particular area. Like they're bused from New York City or from Texas.
I think we're talking apples and oranges here.
Okay.
Just if I can
So
respectfully
the
disagree.
zoning protects us from that?
Well, yes, because these are for sale, single-family residences with, one or two bedrooms in them. I mean, the state is not going to take over something like this and say, we're going to bus in 30 buses or 20 buses, and we're going to temporarily put them up. I think as I said, we're apples and oranges, and I
Okay.
don't want to alarm anybody. I truly believe, my heart of hearts, that could never happen here in Paxton.
Let's see how we doing now. Technology is not my friend today. Okay, excellent. We're back? All right. All right, so we've covered that. Then we have zoning maps. Oh, come on. There we go. Zoning maps updated. So we have the two. So we first have the current one. So this is the one we didn't pull up yet. Let's see here. Is this gonna let me? It should. There we go. All right, I will make this bigger, happily. And there's also a huge map, well, bigger than my screen. There's a large map in the front of the room as well that Jane brought.
Oh, thank you.
If anyone wanted to take a look. So this is the current zoning as it is. So I think Neil already explained this a little bit earlier. So you have here in red is the business district. General Residence A, or GRA, is the center of town, all the way down to the Worcester line. So that's the current as it is today.
Correct. I just also want to follow up that we have some pre-existing non-conforming businesses located in town. I mean, they're there, they were there before zoning came into place, so they're grandfathered, they'll be there for as long as those people want to keep them as businesses. If you start heading south out of town, I think the first one that comes to mind is Forest Repairs, then there's the Paxton Garage. The next one down would be Pleasant View Nursery. There was a discussion, somebody wanted to buy that lot, and they went and got it rezoned, but it didn't meet the minimum requirements for a business zoned property. I think it was 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square feet short. So presently there is a home on that. And then the next coming down, that would be the cleaner, I'm sorry, the liquor store, the coffee shop, the cleaners, the pizzeria, and then the Conti building as you come down there, and then that's Crowning Shield on the road that's on the inset there. So those are the current business sections in town. And we're suggesting or recommending that we increase it, any lot that fronts onto 122 from the current center of town to the Worcester line. Any comments or questions?
I'm just going to change the map out.
Oh, okay.
I do have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Rob, yes.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to help out somebody who's not able to attend because they're working. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're having.
A business zone there, it may not be conducive to a successful site location. So that was kind of the answer to that. We wanted to stay on the main drag. Next, now, just keep moving along, I'll try to address them.
Perfect, no, that's perfect.
That's fine, okay.
And like I say, I'm trying to make this, for real. Asking, okay, you kind of answered that, because they were asking if you did center of town to Rutland line or to Well, yeah, it would be Rutland line, whether you go down 122 or Rutland down
56.
56.
Okay. No, and again, let's address that a little bit. We had some mention of that previously. I guess the select board had mentioned that at one point. And my concern as you do this, and I'm talking from a planning standpoint, not necessarily from zoning, but I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. But because this is going to be considered a radical change, we kind of wanted to go, I use the expression at the select board meeting, in baby steps.
Yeah.
So we just want to see how this goes. If you go from the center of town to Rutland on 122, there is a lot of open space there, which would be possibly compatible with some sort
The
of...
three businesses, they're stuck because the zoning has been changed?
In the big picture, the simple answer is yes, but to discuss it further, or to kind of dig in, what we're trying to do is, we've heard of cottage industries and things like, if somebody wanted to put a hair salon in a home along 122, or a barber shop, or a boutique for clothes, or a consignment shop, or something like this, at present time, they can't do that. But I'm not saying a major or an impactful type business. Now, if
What about a strip mall with 4 or 5 or 6 stores?
Well-
One of which is a boutique, one of which is a bakery, and one of which is a
Okay.
salon, like
All
you
right,
said.
all right, so as
But
you
it's a
look at...
strip mall.
That's fine. As you look at some of those lots, these are all excellent questions. I mean, I
Well,
want to
didn't come
engage.
here- I mean, I didn't know about this meeting until a few hours ago. so-
See, and we didn't have updates until just
Okay.
minutes ago. So just kind of, we're kind of going to get through.
Well, I'm part of the baby steps that you're talking about.
All right, that's fine. So as you look at the lots along 122 and the concerns that residents may have about just your scenario, that somebody would buy 4 or 5 or 6 home lots, residential lots, and try to create a small business center, those are thinking the same thing at home. And we want to dispel some of the concerns. So, the lots along 122 are usually 20,000 square feet or less. So they don't lend themselves to the application that you're concerned about, even if there were 2 or 3 joined together. And I think each one would have to be brought before the town for consideration. I mean, if a property were sold, or a group of properties were sold with the intent of, I'm going to remove or demolish what's there, and then build something new, it would have to meet all the current setbacks and standards, and look at that, he got his copy.
Thank you. So, sir.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect.
Please.
Okay, 45 years ago, give or take a few years, when I first moved to this wonderful town, there was a bar or a saloon or something like that on Route 122. Down the road a ways.
Yeah, the pub, yes.
And I would
Paxton
ride
pub.
by it, and I was so envious of the guys that had there, okay? But there was, and then sometime it closed. That
Burnt down.
closed, and I don't know what's there now.
An
But
empty lot.
that would be an example, from my way of thinking, of
home, just like there are businesses next to the homes on Pleasant Street today. Unfortunately, and one of the reasons why we picked that area of Pleasant Street is because there are pre-existing non-conforming businesses that cannot repair, renovate, improve their business because they're not legally zoned. So Howe's Farm Stand, I'm not putting any words in their mouth. I assume they don't want a tarp on their roof. They cannot fix that building until we create a business zone there. So someone may never build a new business along Pleasant Street, but this allows the current property owners to do improvements to their business, to improve their value, to pay more taxes, which cannot happen right now. So I would say, yes, I am hopeful that someone will bring a new business to Paxton, will increase the competitiveness and the viability of having businesses in Paxton, which right now, there's a very small percentage of lots in Paxton that can have a business. As far as I know, they're all occupied. So this will open up that possibility to bring more services to the town, more amenities for the residents, diversify our tax base, which we do not have now, and then allow those businesses that exist in that zone that is.
Zoning of that land change any of the property taxes for folks living there?
No.
Because we have a single tax rate.
Yes, please, I can't, I see a hand, but
It's okay.
grab a microphone so that we can hear you.
I don't like microphones. I don't know. That make it green, right? Okay. Ellen McGahey from Cutler Road. I'm just curious, the red rezoning for business, you're only limiting it to the lots on Pleasant Street. So when you're talking about a strip mall, you couldn't buy a lot behind one of those properties,
Correct,
correct?
correct.
Okay.
No, and those are all excellent questions, because again, if you're thinking it, people have the same concern, same questions. Please, thank you for asking. All right, anything else?
Jane, do you want to address sort of that idea of split zoning?
Yes. So currently, the zoning in the center of town is a circle. If you want, I can put the other
No, it is,
map
it's
back up.
1,500 feet from the monument on the common. That is
Correct.
residential A, and then all the way down 122.
Thank you,
Worcester.
Neil. And so as a result, the lots that are on the perimeter of the outside edge of that circle have split zoning, part GRA and part GRB, which in zoning, it's really not good to have that split zoning, and so we reevaluated.
Are there any restrictions or requirements for what types of businesses might be allowed? Or is that a whole nother?
Well, there is a use chart that's included in the zoning, in the zoning update, yes, because we updated the chart to try to clarify some of the things that you may see. Do you have a concern about would something specific be allowed or denied?
To be honest, more just curiosity about
Okay.
what would
Right.
be allowed.
Is that a question from online? Yes, sir, please just.
Yes, it is.
Grab the microphone.
What type of businesses are you trying to court?
I don't have an answer to that. We're looking for something that would draw somebody to this area. So, I mean, small retail, as I used the expression before, a cottage business, like an insurance office, something. Go ahead, Heather.
I was going to say, this is one of the reasons I think we have the Economic Development Committee, is so that they can work with the community and they can bridge the gap between the community and businesses to find the right relationships, the right fit as we move forward. But as we keep talking about this evening, the first step is to add the zoning so that we actually have the ability to even have those conversations. There is a question, God bless you, online. I'm going to blow it up a little more, Neil. Oh, there we go. Blew it up so much it blew
So
up.
I guess she's referencing 1911 and this parcel right here, as well as 19.3 E, F, and G. I'm not sure, Jane, how they got included, other than at 19, where are we at? 19, looks like A, B, D, E, F.
It is. Yeah.
All right, so here's the sports club, here's the Dunkin' Donuts. No, here's the Dunkin' Donuts, here's the sports, no, that's not.
Yeah, how is?
Because the concrete building would be right here, 3B. This is the dental office. This would be the garage.
Well, this is us right here, right?
You were right before. The Dunkin' Donuts is that small square next to that white line. The white line is the driveway down to Paxton Center.
Oh, this is the,
Yep.
yeah, this is the health club.
To the health
Okay,
club,
So this
yeah.
is the Paxton garage.
Yep.
Now known as Sabo's. Whoops, hello.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so if we're,
Motorcycle shop.
yeah, hang on, Sarah, are you done? Did that help? I mean, we're gonna have to follow up.
She said thank you, yes.
Okay, so
Tell her to put her hand down.
motorcycle shop, I think would be a stretch, but a bike repair shop, pedal bikes and things like that may fit. Motorcycles take a lot of space in terms of, sales or sales of accessories and repairs and parts and things like this. So, listen, I can't say it won't happen, but there is zoning in place to make sure that everything is reviewed. And if it turns, again, I'm not being coy here, but I don't know where you live, but if one of these turns out next to you, I'm expecting to see you at whatever hearing we have to have that.
I live on Old Lanton Circle.
Okay. So you're close by. I'll make sure that if there's a motorcycle shop
One
that.
of Bud Holland's
Okay, all right.
places.
But as I said, these are good questions, but we're trying to make it compatible with
My
businesses.
property abuts Boynton Park
Okay,
with a New England-style stone fence on the rear wall.
Okay.
dividing.
all right. But we're trying to make it compatible or conducive for businesses to think of coming into town. One thing I just wanted to add as we move forward here a little bit is, at the present time, there's only one tax rate in town. So if people are thinking by increasing the zoning to more business-friendly, if something stays in the existing structure, the only increased tax revenue that would be generated would be equipment that is added to that residence or that building, not a residence, to that business, that could be taxed as business property that would change that. Now, if somebody were to purchase one or two properties, decide to raise them, take them right down.
40,000 square feet, special permit for over that. All other livestock prohibited under 5 acres, special permit over that.
Julia, come on, chime in here. I'm waiting.
Well,
Pull the microphone in.
you've heard me speak on this several times now. Let me grab this. I think when we were going through making these revisions to the zoning bylaws, the intent that not only did they just plain old need to be gone through because it was time, but the intent was to try to make the town a little bit more business friendly. In the process, we've kind of quietly tamped down our agriculture a little bit, and I really am a proponent of agriculture, and I want to make sure that we're not doing this in a way that is going to impact people who want to be able to have things like, animals on their property and whatnot, and do it lawfully and with consideration for their neighbors and all of that. I know we had a discussion last night, and part of this was, with regard to how 5 acres, that 5-acre mark was previously handled. And it's interesting the way the zoning bylaws were previously written, which is that over 5 acres was really use by right. It just wasn't specifically written in there. So what we've done now is we've taken use by right and made it a special permit for large properties. And my understanding is that people who already have animals on their property, under the previous zoning bylaws, would be sort of grandfathered in to this, but 5 acres is a large property, and I think it does become onerous on somebody to have to come in and get a special permit in a situation where there's separate oversight for people that have barns and whatnot. We do have an animal inspector that goes out to all of the barns and inspects the barns and makes sure that manure piles are managed appropriately and whatnot. So this is essentially adding yet another step and making it more difficult for people to support themselves and provide themselves with a lifestyle that A, reduces their cost for food, B, potentially supplies healthy, nutritious food to themselves, their neighbors, potentially other areas locally. And I find that, I don't want to see us think that's not specifically listed as prohibited. So I do have an alternate. I can certainly send you, Neil, if you want. I'm not sure it's really appetizing because it does get a little bit busy. And I don't want to make more work for the zoning, the ZBA, when they're having to review these things to interpret it.
Okay, so I think the intent when we started, and part of it follows up on your first discussions that we had when you came to the information session.
Mm-hmm.
You had some concerns about checks and balances, making sure that if you have something, regardless of what it is, that somebody in town know about it. I believe the discussion point you brought up was chickens and Board of Health, in case there was ever some sort of bird flu outbreak that may somehow end up in Paxton.
Yeah.
So by having those permits applied for and filed, there is a record in town. So I'm concerned that you're concerned with another layer of somebody trying to lower cost to feed families and whatever. I mean, if you have livestock that you raise to then slaughter and butcher and then feed your families. My concern is that the permits should be in place so that we know that they're there. Every now and then on TV, you know, at least once a month, you see something where the MSPCA goes in and there are animals that are being abused and
Are new to animals and have neighbors maybe that have some concerns. It's a good way to air concerns, find solutions, and then have those documented in a way that the building commissioner, building inspector can go back with that record and say, remember, you know, you agreed to clean your manure pile 4 times a year and do fly control and not have your barn, you know, on this property line and things like that. I just feel like it is a good way to avoid dispute or misunderstandings later. In no way is the Zoning Board of Appeals purview, you know, to prevent people from having agriculture or animals or gardens or things like that. It's just a way to have a conversation about it before things could go potentially awry.
Okay. I don't know, it occurred to me last night that you may not be aware of the animal regulations that exist already in town, which obviously I think after these bylaws get updated will probably have to be reviewed. Are you aware that there's a whole booklet of animal regulations that the Board of Health, at least that I looked at, don't regulate in a use table agriculture,
But it could come before the Board of Health then,
it could.
correct?
Yep.
So then that purview would fall into your jurisdiction versus, if
Well-
I wanted to have something on my, an alpaca, a llama, whatever, it's not in there. But what would I do? I would come to town hall and say, I want to have this 4-legged critter. And am I going to have to go before the Board of Health? Probably. Or the animal officer is going to come and inspect?
So, right, so so I haven't looked at these animal regulations in a while, and it actually.
I want an elephant.
Having looked at this, the zoning, it occurred to me, I'm like, geez, we need to update that, because as you might recall, we had some issue in town a year or two ago, where there was a property in excess of 5 acres, and some neighbors were complaining about animals on that property. And we had to get involved at that point along with the zoning enforcement officer in order to figure out what was going on.
All right,
and
but
what
when you're
was
saying "we" now, that's Board
the
of
Board of
Selectmen?
Health, sorry.
Okay,
Board of
Health.
Yep. And at that point in time, or require animal permits at that point in time. So now I need to go back and take another look at it, especially with this. But the point I'm making is that I'm not sure if, as these were developed, that it was apparent or understood that there is another check and balance already present. And so now we're creating a second one that maybe is not necessary. And
Oh, I disagree, though. We need to have some zoning for animals. The second layer is the Board of Health or the animal officer. So at this point, I think there's more than enough in place. And just to follow up on what Roberta said, if you have more than 5 acres and you want to put, the barn's not going to be in the middle, we still have to meet setbacks for all structures on property lines.
Exactly.
So in other words, you can't literally put it on the property. It's going to be a 35-foot setback or whatever.
Yep.
And when that process begins, are we calling him now the zoning enforcement officer? He would inspect the property and say, okay, like the manure piles or the waste cannot be here, there. It would be best recommended to be there.
Yep.
So that, again, I think the things are in place, and we're getting bogged down here in something that maybe is not planning or zoning, it's more Board of Health. So they should fit hand in glove. We're trying to give you the basis, and
Town services coordinator would know that. Do you do goat permits, Cheryl?
I think I've done one in 14
So.
years.
all right. Are you good? I mean, I understand your concerns.
Mhm.
And is this something that you're going to continue to pursue, albeit at the special town meeting, where we're going to have to defend the position of why we've got what we've got as of tonight, or?
Oh, I would ask it in a different way. If there's any way that CMRPC can provide you with some best practices of other rural communities that have either done it differently or done it the same and had an outcome that was satisfactory, maybe some data would be more helpful than us imagining a different process or a process that's going to be in place.
It's something I could look
Okay.
into and get back to all of you on.
Yeah. I mean, I can't guarantee one way or the other based on today or tomorrow whether I would make an issue of it at town meeting. Entirely possible. I'm not going to rule it out. I would love for there to be some more discussion on it, however, and potentially we can look at coming up with something that maybe meets.
Sure, I'd rather sort of see if anyone else in town has similar concerns or objections to us creating a special permit for really what we're talking about, livestock 5 acres or more.
I have, it's related to.
Is the microphone on?
I have 7 questions that are related to this
Pull
topic.
the microphone in.
Is it, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I just.
Okay, sorry. 7 questions from this person that I'm
Okay.
trying to help. I think number 1 was answered last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Is Paxton truly a right to farm community, or do we just believe we are?
We just believe we are
just
at
believe
this
we are.
point.
That's what I thought, so I ran with that. Okay, I'll be really quick. What animals will be allowed on what size lots if these bylaws get adopted? So it's 5+, and anything 5 or lower, you have to get a special permit. True.
Correct.
True.
It's both.
No,
It's
no,
both.
No. So,
It's 5
sorry.
acres or more
The way-
and between 40,000 square feet and 5 acres.
Right.
Thank
So
you.
anything less than 40,000 square feet, no. You can't get one, regardless.
You cannot,
So you can't
No
have a
permit,
couple
no
of chick-
nothing.
You can't have a couple of chickens if you want?
if
I
you,
have chickens, but-
You should. Feed your family.
So can I ask a really dumb question?
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
40,000
40,000.
square feet, what is that? Is that
It's 1 acre.
less
It's
than
1
an
acre.
It's
Yeah,
less
it's
than, for horses.
Yeah.
Horses.
Yeah.
Or just
There was
oversized
one on
barns for
Sorority
equipment,
Street,
but
I remember.
if
Yeah,
that
I-
answers your question.
I think it's been a common sort of misconception through town.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So,
I'm all set now.
next,
because-
okay, we're going to wait till another section?
No, the rest of the questions are moved because Roberta just
Okay.
helped solve
Please,
everything.
please
Thank
get your permits in for the request for those ASAP. Okay. Heather, moving along.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, we've jumped a few times.
No, that's fine. I think we've kind of addressed this one for the,
Yeah, I meant to go back to use
no,
tables.
that's fine.
So then we just have ADUs, as you already discussed, Neil, that's just in there in the use table. And again, it's in, let's see, the new one, so this covers the compliance with the state change, which is under, hold on, Alan, let me make it bigger. Under 900 square feet or less than 50% floor space, it's allowed in all districts. And then ADUs that are larger than that, they would still be restricted by special permit and only in residential districts. And then multifamily MBTA is only in residential districts. That right, Jane? Okay.
Correct.
All right, use tables, business, so we just did a couple small changes here. Recreational facility, we deleted the word not, including membership, so it does include membership facilities. Retail business, yes, for the business district only, it was originally a no. Business office / bank, yes in business, it was originally a no. So let me just pull that up real quick on my screen so you have it here. Always exciting when it works.
I just have a question for Jane on the consistency of the riding stables.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if someone came to us, because they have a property greater than 5 acres, and asked to have horses there, that would be appropriate under our new bylaw. But then if they wanted to open a business to offer lessons, they would be allowed to do that without going to zoning board of appeals, but there would be another process in town for the business part of it.
Well, academy is used in that definition, or that use. So I would think that would include riding lessons.
Oh, so we have, in our table, we have yes and 2. In the over 5 acres.
Yes,
We have
before I
yes
think
without
there
a-
was just one designation, and we're recommending that we separate it out to under 5 acres and over 5 acres.
But do you see where, you'd have to have the horse first?
Yeah.
So you'd have to come.
Put it before the
Put the, you have to put the horse before the cart, or the lesson. So the horse would have to be permitted first over 5 acres, and then it would be by right if they wanted to have riding lessons.
You would have to get the special permit for the horse, right? Like, so like the horse doesn't come with the riding stable. I can't believe I'm having this conversation. So when you're looking at the riding stable, there's no assumption that there's horses.
Right.
But chances are, if you have a riding stable, you already had to go through building permit and everything else to actually get the riding
think-
stable.
Not
But I
necessarily.
think what would happen.
Wait, you'd need to have the barn to house the animal. So, I mean, yes, again, this is where we get into the checks and balances.
Yeah.
I know we're having a good time here about this, the horse before the cart and all that kind of stuff, but there are measures in place presently that will watch what's happening.
I don't know if you remember, there was a parcel, I think, if I remember correctly, it was behind where our house is right now, that was going to be going up for sale, and there was a gentleman who was interested in putting in a horse breeding facility there.
On Nanigan Road.
Was it Nanigan Road?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And so I use that example because that was a situation where somebody would have been coming in right from the start and putting in, say, a stable with horses. Now, if they came up
Now, wait a
and
minute, Julia. Part of it was he built a new home.
Well,
Then he built a barn. Then he talked about livestock, in this case, horses.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it just, as you go layer to layer to layer.
Whatever, and I eventually want to open and start offering riding lessons, I don't have to come back for permission for that,
If you have more than 5 acres.
if it's over 5 acres.
Right.
But a riding stable isn't necessarily a business either, right?
Do we have, Jane, do we have definition in there somewhere of a riding stable? I don't recall seeing one.
We're about to add one.
Could you put the word for profit?
Cheryl had a good suggestion here for, adding a terminology somewhere in this section of 15 with the words for profit.
Okay.
To clarify that in regards to, you're asking for business.
I'm in. That sounds good.
Jane, thoughts?
Why are you biased against them? Or against for-profit?
Well, I think the problem just is, Alan, just to clarify that it's some kind of business, money changing hands,
Has nothing to do.
as opposed to,
Has nothing to do with whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. Money changing hands.
I think it means I think what we're trying to do here is distinguish that this is in the business sector.
Doing on their property regardless of size, because there just might be some things that do impact neighbors that are not thought of. I would want to spend a little bit more time and talk with Jane a little bit more about riding stables, because I feel like somewhere else, we talked about commercial, and maybe that's a better term to use rather than for-profit or nonprofit, would be commercial or public. I think that's important
Right.
to distinguish.
This is outside my area of expertise, but I think you might want to consider really specifying the animals you're talking about, because I thought, didn't Rutland have bison someplace?
They did, yes, they did.
That was like an attraction, and,
That was on like 150 acres.
yeah.
Agricultural acres.
Yeah.
And there was a place that had llamas that they were inviting people to purchase and breed and so forth and so on, so. If you need 5 acres for horses, how many do you need, how many acres do you need for bison?
What's allowed today in our current laws? Can I have a riding stable? Can I house horses?
Well, this says on number 15, it says horses or ponies, that's it. That's the clarification. So you're not gonna be able to have a riding ring with a buffalo or a bull or.
Elephant.
So again, we're being more restrictive with this new.
Well, it says special permit for riding stables in our current
Right,
zoning.
so I-
Yeah, but this was already, the horses and ponies, David. Driveways, now yes in all districts, that should be a parentheses, not nine. And add the distribution center, so let me pull that one up, because I think that one's come up a couple times and a couple.
All right, as you look for that, common driveways presently are not allowed in town, and what we did in discussion purposes, we're suggesting, or we're asking, common driveways be allowed now, but only for the maximum of 2 properties. So instead of having 2 curb cuts and 2 impervious surfaces and this and that, they could share 1 driveway, 1 access point to the street or the highway or the road or avenue or whatever. So at one point, we had discussions about 3, 4, or 5 lots, but that then creates a very small road, and we don't have any say in what happens. So this way, a driveway is usually 15 to 20 feet wide or 12 to 15 feet wide and will only service 2 homes. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Okay, Heather?
6.
Yeah, and conversion and/or use of a single-family dwelling existing on March 8th, 1946 as a dwelling for not more than 2 families or as a convalescent nurse or nursing home, boarding or lodging house subject to special conditions 3.3.2. So hopefully we were not missing the one house that this applied to, but I don't think anyone had seen this come up since they had been involved, so we thought this might potentially be something we needed to consider removing. Okay. All right, so back over to the thing. Accessory dwelling units, you've already covered that, Neil, so I've covered everything I have.
Okay. So at this point, if there are any further questions, as they say, speak now or forever hold your peace, because we're about to close the hearing for public comment. Alan, are you good, buddy? You're good?
No, I'm not good.
Uh-oh.
I have major questions and comments about.
Take the microphone, please.
I have major questions and comments about the larger parcels, not that are off of Pleasant Street. You've really focused on the business stuff around Pleasant Street, but there's I don't know, 14 or 15 acres off of.
That MBTA bylaw is not under consideration at this hearing. We're still doing further investigation, and at some point, it will come forward. But there will be a follow-up information session we will have on the town webpage. There will be information. I'd love to have you come. I mean, you asked a lot of good questions, so I want you back in the audience. And people at home, I want them writing in their questions, because some of the questions we've received.
Careful, you may get what you wish for.
Listen, but that helps us. The more input we get from the community helps us to get this thing right. I used an expression before, it's your town, it's your vote. So as we go forward, we're not ready tonight to finalize a recommendation for the bylaw, because we're still awaiting some input from state agencies to make sure that what we're going to recommend or reference as our bylaw complies with what they need. Okay, so that's still a moving target. Other than that, I think everything else that was discussed this evening, from the general bylaws to the ADUs to the business zoning increase down Main Street, those are the items up for discussion, correct, Heather? Did I miss any of them? Those are the 3 that we're going to do?
Well, I think it's the whole bylaw itself,
That's what I'm
right?
saying, bylaw plus, including ADU and including the
Yep,
business.
and including
okay.
the map.
All right, that's fine. I was going to do it as 1, 2, and 3. That way, if, when it goes to the select board, Julia, what are you thinking?
Is represented incorrectly on that map. Are you aware of that? It does not, in fact, have frontage on Pleasant Street,
I didn't believe it did. It has frontage on Camp Street.
on Camp, but that's not what's reflected on that map. The frontage is on the other side of 3 Camp.
All right, so let me go.
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same. This map is not representative of the MBTA Communities Overlay map. This map
Right.
that you're seeing is just the zoning, business.
Yeah, I understand,
Yeah.
but is the map that you're using in discussing the MBTA issue the same as?
Nope.
So the property is represented correctly on that map? Because it's represented incorrectly on this map.
Two different maps, two different purposes.
Right, I understand that, but the 5 Camp has like a little,
So this is Camp Street right here.
correct.
Heather, can this?
And
is this one page?
that diamond is 3 Camp? There's
Yes.
that, no, the other, the diamond. No,
Yes.
diamond.
Diamond.
The A.
Kite.
There.
Yeah.
That is 3 Camp. There's a house on it.
Okay.
You see where the panhandle is next to it?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not correct. It's on wetlands issue. To get to the bulk of the property on the panhandle as represented there, it was more problematic with regard to traversing wetlands. It's still problematic, but it's worse the way it's depicted on this map. They redrew it, so essentially if you slid that diamond down towards Pleasant Street and then put that panhandle behind the house, that's the way that the current property is.
All right, so if I visit the assessor's office tomorrow, you're saying that that's what I should see on the current assessor's map. Cheryl, is that-
I can show you if you want to.
Right now, I'm looking at it.
on the state, it's not on.
It's not showing there, yeah.
All right, he said it, Jason has just, it's not on the current.
The current state map.
The current state one looks like that?
Correct.
Okay.
But I know
I
there's
can-
typically a
I can
pretty big
show you.
lag on those.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, there could be a lag time
It's a
between.
big lag time on
Right.
those, certainly.
What's the address?
5 Camp Street.
3
Oh, 5 Camp or 3 Camp?
3 Camp is the house, the 15 acres is 5 Camp.
Okay, 5.
Yes.
All right, so we'll get a clarification on that.
This is, this, so here, this is Camp, this is,
It's not likely to change anything with the zoning.
No, right, I guess at this point,
this.
I understand your concerns, and we need to take that into account as we move forward with the MBTA portion of where we're going.
Important to think through for the benefits of it, for being able to.
We're not discussing that tonight, right?
I just want to set the table, because if we don't have,
We're discussing it
excuse
or
me,
not.
excuse me,
I'm sorry.
you were able to ask a question,
That's right.
and I'm
That's not
answering
what
it
I
now.
said.
I'm answering it now.
I didn't ask that question.
You did earlier, you asked
And I was told. we're not
who would be
discussing-
moving
All right,
into
hold
those
on.
units.
Let's-
And
all right,
I'm
let's-
saying that the units provide an opportunity for all of us, whether we're a new family, a single person, someone who's older and wants to stay in the community and is downsizing. We have to be very open-minded, and we have requirements that the state is putting before us, and that is what we're talking about. And that's what we'll discuss again at the next informational hearing.
You know
And that's all that we're going to talk
I'm
about.
allowed to ask when the next informational hearing
We don't
is.
have it set yet.
Right. But Alan, it'll be posted on the town webpage. So, all right, with that, any other comments? All right, so at this point, I am going to close the public hearing. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your comments and questions. As you can see, this is a fairly involved process that we've spent, as I said, almost 16 months trying to bring forward. And I will entertain a motion from the board that's remaining here. I know you're typing over there, Heather. That's good. Just keep working on it. It's because I want to get it right. I don't want to have a technicality. Oh, somebody's got a question. Oh,
I
long
think
night.
someone left us.
Yep.
It still helps when everyone looks at me.
All right, that's fine. As I said, we just,
It makes my brain work much faster.
what, the pressure? Oh, don't feel, there's no pressure.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're one big family here. We're the family of Paxton.
Motion to, you could do motion to recommend.
Approval of,
The ADU bylaw for one article and the remaining of the zoning bylaws and the maps as a second.
I'll make the motion to select 2 articles to the select board. One is the ADU bylaw, and the second is the remainder.
With the maps.
With the maps.
Can you show us the map, hold up the map so I know which map you're talking, is that?
That map right there, Alan.
map's right there.
The one we've been going over, the one that's on 5 pages.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, call for vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. At this point, I believe we are concluded. I would take, before we do that, let's vote on the minutes from, if we have everybody here that we need to get in, let's just see here. We have,
For your reference, everyone.
well, thank.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and one abstention again, Cheryl, okay? So, before we depart, I just have one thing I would like to say publicly. I know if we're still on board, are we online, Heather, or are we off? Okay. As a member of the planning board for the last 23 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Cheryl for 14 of them. I know you don't want to sit there and hear this, but you're gonna. So, the job or the performance that she has presented to the town, and particularly our board, because I've worked with many people over the years, I think is exemplary. I think she's going to be sorely missed. I wish her best in her next chapter as she moves forward. And I just hope that you'll stay in touch with us as things go on. But I just personally wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for the success of this board. So, all right. All right, I'm good.
Sarah Ford says, thanks, Cheryl.
See, there you go, another one. All right, we're good. Oh, motion to adjourn, we need that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And I'll second that.
Okay, 9:06. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, what do you got here?